Okay, in today's lesson, we're going to learn about powers. And powers are a new sort of step in mathematics, a new way that we look at things. So the easiest way, I think, to explain this is to actually go back to when you first started learning about mathematics. So the first thing you would have learned is numbers, and then you'd use those to count items. So for example, I'm going to use the example of batteries. So if you use numbers, you can then count how many batteries you had. But now, let's say those batteries came in packs of 2. So you could use those numbers, and you could have, let's say you had 5 packs of batteries. So your first pack of battery had 2, and second pack of batteries had another 2, and your third pack had another 2, and your fourth pack had another 2, and finally your fifth pack had another 2, and you could do that. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. And there you go, you had 10 batteries. However, you could also think of it in a different way. You could say that you have 5 exact same packages here of batteries. So you could say you had 2 batteries in each pack, and you had 5 packs. And you have now learned that that is also 10. So it's the exact same thing, but multiplication was sort of a way for us to do this pattern of addition in a quicker, easier way. And 2's are obviously fairly easy to go by, but you could imagine if you had 37 packs of 42 or something like that, then those numbers would get really crazy really quickly if you're just doing it simply by addition. But if you're doing it by multiplication, then you know techniques that you can do that, and it makes it a lot quicker and faster and easier to write as well. So what happens when we want to do multiplication patterns over again? So for example, if we were going to do that same pattern of 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, but this time, instead of adding, if we were multiplying each one of these, we could do that through the mathematical techniques that we've learned. So we know that 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is going to be 8, 8 times 2 is going to be 16, and 16 times 2 is going to be 32. So we can definitely do that. However, a quicker and easier way to at least write that is if we say we have these groupings of 2 that we're multiplying by each other, and we're going to multiply those by each other, by itself, 5 times. So this is what we call a power, and a power consists of 2 parts. It has a base, which is the number that we're multiplying by, and it has an exponent, which is the number of times that we're actually doing that multiplication. The answer for 2 to the power of 5 is still 32. There's no difference in it whatsoever, but we just write it in a little bit of a different way. So again, the base number is at the bottom, and that's the number of times, or the number that we're multiplying. The exponent is this small number written above, and that is the number of times we're going to be multiplying this number here by itself. Okay, so this doesn't make a lot of sense for batteries, but it does make sense for some other things. And I'll do a bit of a visual representation to show you how this works. So if we had something that was expanding at a consistent rate, so you can imagine if you're playing a video game and there's a ball or something, and every time it hits something, it creates 2 new balls, and that so it keeps on going around and hitting things and getting into larger and larger amounts. So the first time we'd start with just our single ball, and when that hit something, it would break into 2, and we'd have 2 balls. Actually, I'm just going to expand this a little bit wider so that I have space to do this. So the very first time our ball hit something, it broke into, or it multiplied, I should say, into 2 balls. Now, that's fine, that's easy for us to do. But the second time it hits something, this ball is going to turn into 2 new balls, and this ball is going to turn into 2 new balls. And they keep going around, and another time goes by, and then they expand again. So this one is going to turn into 2 more. This one, again to 2 more, and so forth. And this continues to keep happening. Every certain amount of time, let's say in the video game. There's lots of other real life situations that this happens with. For example, growth of bacteria or things like that. There's lots of real world applications to it, but it's we'll just do this for now. So first of all we've each time here we've taken the original amount and multiplied it by 2 because 2 is our base number. And on the second stage we did that again. And the third stage we did that again. And the fourth stage we did that again, which brings us finally to the 5th stage where we'll do that one more time. And again, each one of these I'm just breaking into 2 more little items here. Okay, so we've got our 5th level. So when we're thinking of it in terms of exponents, and I'll write the exponents just on the other side just so you can see how it's going up to every power. So the first time we multiplied by 2 was our first power. And that gave us 2 items. The second time, that's our second power. Each one of those 2 split again, so that gave us 4 items. On the third step, the third power, we had again multiplied that everything by 2. So that brought us out to 8 items. And finally on the 4th power, it expanded again to be 16 individual items. And on the 5th power, it eventually became 32. And so this is all this is doing. And like we could count individual items going down, and that would give us our 32 here. Or we could do it in a multiplying process, which would give us 32. And finally, now we have this exponent process, which also gives us 32. So things that I want you to take away from this lesson is that there are these things that we have called powers, and they consist of 2 parts. They consist of a base and an exponent. And all the base is the item that you're multiplying by. The exponent is the number of times you're doing it, or the number of times you're increasing, if you will. And then the product is the actual final value that you have here at each stage as you're going along. So if you were to the 5th power, or the exponent of 5, whatever you want to call it, then you would be up to a product of 32 items. I hope this has been helpful.